This is my response to the Scott Lewis Gaming Blog with Tag Friday number 7's question, which is, which game made you finally realize you arrived as a hardcore gamer? I think it's extremely difficult to narrow something like that down to a specific game, because when you consider yourself a hardcore gamer, it's not a specific game that suddenly you got this power up and all of a sudden you're a hardcore gamer. You know, it's something that builds up over time, you know, definitely over years, and it's not something that, oh, I got a PS3 2 months ago, I'm a hardcore gamer. You know, you enjoy it, but you don't know a lot of the history and the backgrounds to all these different games that are coming out. And I think all of that combined is kind of what forms a real gamer. And so it's not just playing a game and enjoying that specific game, it's having played lots of games, knowing why developers make decisions on putting this feature in a certain game, because, you know, in the past that type of feature has had this type of history, and, you know, people liked it, people didn't like it, this is what worked, this is what didn't work. And so it's more about your knowledge as a gamer from playing games that turns you into this sort of hardcore gamer, I guess. As a kid, I used to keep a notebook with the high scores from NES games, and also I even recorded my completion times. I don't have that notebook anymore, but I would play through Wizards and Warriors, and I got extremely good at the game because I kept playing through it over and over and over. And every time I'd write down my high scores, and you know, I'd start it up a couple days later, and I'd try to get all the extra gems I could, and seriously try to beat my scores that I had logged there. I would try. I remember a friend and I were playing Kid Icarus, and he had, you know, a copy of it over at his house, and I had mine, and we were both playing the game, trying to see how many times we could finish it, or who could finish it the quickest. And a lot of that came down to seeing what colors Pitt's hair would turn, because when you get an upgrade, your hair would turn a color. And so we would constantly be calling each other on the phone, hey, I just finished the game again, or hey, my hair turned white. You know, we never played the game to that point, but we wanted to keep going to see how far it went. And I remember I finally called, and his mom was in bed, and she got mad at me for calling so late, and so I decided to go ahead and call it quits then. I also remember playing Tiger Heli for so long. A friend and I kept, I mean, the game only has 4 levels, but a friend and I played it literally all day and trying to see if there was an ending. And of course there's no ending to the game, and we just kept taking turns over and over, and, you know, just to see what happens, because it's back then you couldn't really look up you know, how to finish a game, or what secrets there are, or any of the details on it, other than what you have in maybe a Nintendo Power magazine or the instruction manual. You know, there was no frequently asked questions or things like that. Other times, you know, if I wasn't doing scores or completion times, I'd challenge myself by trying to finish Metroid without Varia and an Ice Beam, which is, it's hard, but, you know, it is possible. More recent crazy things would be like, sadly, having over, you know, 380 days of playtime in Final Fantasy XI, which, I mean, there's more hardcore people than that in the Final Fantasy XI, but still, that's, you know, a year of my life dedicated to that single game that I'd never get back. But, you know, being able to play that game, I mean, well, that's an interesting game to take into account, because so many people consider that such a hardcore game, and I think the only reason that I was able to really enjoy it is because I've had a lot of past experiences with RPGs where you have to, you know, JRPGs anyway, where you have to sit there and grind, and eventually you'll move on. But getting that one level just makes all the difference in the world. Even though there's 75 levels, each of those levels makes a huge impact on your character, and wanting to see your character through to the end is kind of what pushes you, or what pushed me on. I guess if I had to pick a specific game from a time period where my gaming status was more clear to me, I guess it'd be back in 1997, and the game would be Dracula X Gekka no Yasokyoku, or Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I got the Japanese version of the game for my PlayStation before it was released in the US, and the entire game is in Japanese. All the item names, all the menus, all the descriptions of everything. I mean, it's pretty much 99.9% in Japanese, and I still had a lot of fun with the game. I was able to finish the game. I worked on getting the 200% plus achievement, you know, where you could get cover more areas of the castle than you were supposed to, or than what was listed on the map. After I finished the game, I would still spend weeks farming the rare items, the weapons that some of the enemies drop, and you know, you don't get achievements or any extra endings or anything extra from that. It's purely because the game is fun, and you know, the music was awesome, and you know, and I didn't have a problem dedicating the time it took to get all those extra items and things like that in that game because I enjoyed it. A fellow YouTuber, AxeBlack84, recently picked up Super Castlevania 4 for the Super Nintendo, and that's the game that he hadn't played when he was a kid. And you know, in his video, he was saying how much he appreciated the game, and you know, how it was a gem of a game that he's just now discovering. And it really got me thinking about how I used to pick up games such as Super Castlevania 4, and I'd play through them just because I truly enjoyed them, and it wasn't so I could, you know, defeat somebody in multiplayer or anything like that. It's just because the game was good. I enjoyed the music, I enjoyed the controls, the atmosphere was awesome. I mean, you know, the story is pretty basic. You go kill Dracula, I mean, that's it. But the game itself was fun. I don't necessarily think hardcore gaming is about the size of your video game collection, or like how many headshots you get in Call of Duty, or how many achievements you've got on Xbox Live or PSN or whatever. It's more about appreciating video games in general, and not just one specific game or system, or even, you know, a specific genre. You really have to branch out, in my opinion, to be, I guess, what would be considered a hardcore gamer. It's that whole package of gaming that's made up of your past gaming experiences, the ways you enjoy the, you know, the sound effects or the soundtrack from a game, or noticing the little quirks in the movement of your character that a seasoned gamer picks up on right away, but a casual gamer may not notice it or even care that it affects how the game is played. You know, they're just gonna play through it a little bit, and then they'll be done with the game. It's I don't know. I don't know if I even consider myself a hardcore gamer, because it's so associated right now, anyway, with people sitting in front of a single first-person shooter or one of its many sequels, and all they do is play multiplayer 24/7 of that one game, and them screaming at their teammates because the teammates aren't doing as good. And so I think a more accurate term for a real gamer would be calling them a genuine gamer. So do you genuinely appreciate video games across the board, and not just this one, you know, a football game, or not just this one first-person shooter just because your friends play it? Now, that's not to say that sports games or first-person shooters are bad or anything, but you can't tie yourself to a single video game experience or a single video game and have that define whether or not you're hardcore or not. When not having to pick a specific game to determine, you know, when you felt that you were hardcore, I would say that time comes whenever you feel that you want to own the experience that you've had with video games. And so, and for most people, I guess that comes in the form of collecting the games that they like, or I mean, I guess some people collect the games that they don't even care about. They just buy them just because. But when you own the games, or seek out the games that you truly appreciate, and you don't necessarily have to play them all the time, but because they're there, and because you have them to share with other people in case someone's interested in that, then that means you're hardcore.